The Golden State Warriors, to start the season, for lack of a better term, have had issues, not saying it kind of in a nice way, and there's been a few different reasons why the Golden State Warriors have had these issues over the beginning of the season, and the issues are kind of fixable, but also kind of not. Like, it depends which one you look at. And one of the biggest issues was that the defense has completely, and I mean completely, fallen off of a cliff this season as one of the most underrated aspects of this Warriors dynasty for pretty much ever since it's been good, is that their defense has been really good for pretty much every championship they won. As last year, if you look at it, they were top 5 in defense, and they were even top 5 in defense the year before. So they've always been a very, very well-coached, good defensive team with a lot of solid defenders throughout the entire roster. And that is very impressive, but then you go look at this season, and they are currently ranked the 26th worst defense in the entire NBA. And that is one of the worst in the entire NBA. Like, it's very, very bad. And there's a few reasons that could have contributed to that. One of them being that Klay Thompson's defense is just not what it used to be. But Klay Thompson played last year and they still had a top 5 defense. So I wouldn't say that, you can't say that's the whole reason. Now, yes, Klay hasn't been the same, but he has still been okay. Like, he is not a horrible defender by any means. He's just maybe not the really good defender he used to be. And then you can also say it's because they lost a lot of solid defenders, like Gary Payton II, one of the best defensive perimeter guards in the entire NBA. He has a ton of energy. He's just a very, very good plus defender. Otto Porter is a solid defender. Juan Toscano Anderson was a solid defender. And yes, they lost those 3 guys, but the only one that would really, really hurt them was Gary Payton II. Now, yes, Otto Porter did start and played a lot of minutes and was an okay defender, but you can replace Otto Porter. The only one that would be hard to replace is someone like Gary Payton II, but they still have very solid defenders. Like Draymond Green on the roster is still a very good defender. They added Dante DiVincenzo, who's also a very, very solid plus defender. So their defense should not be this horrible, and I would expect as the season goes on for their defense to just naturally get better, because it doesn't make sense for them to go from a top 5 defense to a bottom 5 defense in only one season without any significant losses besides Gary Payton II. So I would expect their defense to start going up as they get more comfortable and as they get in a rhythm. But as of right now, that is probably the biggest reason to why the Golden State Warriors have had so many struggles, because their defense has been god awful to start the season. And my second reason why I think the Warriors have gotten off to a rough start is because Klay has also gotten off to probably one of the worst starts of his entire career. Now, I'm not on the boat that said Klay has completely fallen off. I think Klay will be okay at some point in the season. I do think he's going to turn it around and at least be a usable player. But right now, Klay is off to probably the worst start of his entire career, as he is currently averaging the least amount of points per game since his rookie season. He's also off to the worst shooting performance of his career, averaging the worst field goal percentage of his career and the worst three-point percentage of his career as well, as he's only shooting 33% from 3 and 35% from the field. And I do expect those to turn around. Like, I don't think you just forget how to shoot, especially when you're as good of a shooter as Klay. I think he will be fine and he will turn it around, and he just had a monster game his last game, so maybe this is the start of him trying to turn it around. And I do think he will be fine, but probably the one thing that won't improve by itself is his defense due to his Achilles injury. He's getting older, and defense is probably one of the first things to go for those type of players that went through that injury and is dealing with aging at the same time. So I don't think his defense will ever be as good as it used to be, but I do think offensively he will come around and be one of the best shooters in the league once again. But that's a big reason why the Warriors have gotten off to such a rough start, is because Klay has as well gotten off to a very rough start, and that is kind of an acceptable thing to think about, because Klay himself admitted in the offseason to not doing any runs. He didn't work out because he didn't want to risk going through another Achilles tear, which is really completely acceptable, and he said if he does stay healthy this whole year, he will get back into his normal offseason. So a slow start for a guy who really didn't participate in that many one-on-one or 5-on-5 basketball activities throughout the offseason is actually very, very understandable. And I think Klay is going to get more comfortable and get in a rhythm as the season goes on. And I think he was kind of using this beginning half of the season, or even beginning quarter of the season, to get comfortable, get in rhythm, and maybe even get in game shape as well. So I do think Klay will start to turn it around, but his struggles to begin the season have been a huge reason why the Warriors have been in such a slump lately. And now for really probably the most unfixable part of this entire problem. I think their defense will be fine, and I think Klay will turn around his season. But this one is probably not going to get fixed, at least not this year, and that is that their young guys have not developed as much as they probably would have hoped. Jonathan Kuminga has regressed this year in pretty much every statistical category. He's averaging 5 less points per game, he's averaging less assists, less rebounds, his efficiency has fallen off, and for his efficiency to have fallen off in the aspect that it did really does hurt him, because Jonathan Kuminga lives around the rim. He's not a shooter by any means, he's not a great offensive player, and he's pretty much just a slasher on the offensive end, and for him to be averaging less than 40% from the field, which he currently is a dramatic drop off, and it really does hurt them a lot. And then even though he was never a good three-point shooter by any means, that has fallen off of a cliff, as it went from 33.6% last year to 9.1% this year. Now, look, I don't hate Kuminga, but I was not high on him coming out of the draft, and I thought this was like a perfect situation for him due to all the floor spacing that is in Golden State, but he has still been a very, very much struggling this year, and he's kind of in a sophomore slump. Now, I do expect his efficiencies to maybe go up a little bit, and understandable, as he is a mainly slashing guy, but I don't think they're going to go up enough for him to really get respectable minutes, and his minutes have already started to dwindle. And then Moses Moody, probably one of the more disappointing guys on the entire roster, who, although he has been okay and his minutes have gotten extended and his role has as well expanded throughout this year, and he has a way bigger role than he did last year, this season he's only been okay and probably hasn't been the needle-moving guy, or haven't had needle-moving improvement that the Warriors were expecting. And yes, he's been solid, but he has not been as good as the Warriors were probably hoping for, and he's just been an average player at best, and it's just been as good as any other role player on the roster. So really, Moody hasn't developed as well as the Warriors probably would have hoped. And then probably for the most disappointing guy on the entire roster, you have James Wiseman. Now, James Wiseman has started off this year actually solid. When he was playing a lot in the beginning of the year, he was putting up more points, rebounds, and stuff than Kevon Looney was, but he got benched due to bad defense, and then he struggled to ever find the court again. He got tons of bad publicity around him, and now he is sent with the G League for at least 10 games, Steve Kerr said. And I do think this is going to help Wiseman, because I do think Wiseman's going to be an okay player. I do think Wiseman will turn into a very solid center in the NBA one day, and this G League minutes, and might get his confidence up and everything, and he might get to where he can actually be usable. But as of right now, James Wiseman has been probably the most disappointing young guy in the entire NBA, and especially the most disappointing young guy on the Golden State Warriors roster currently. And really, with all these things combined, it is not very hard to see why the Golden State Warriors have gotten off to such a rough start this season. But I do not think that the Warriors are going to continue. I do think they're going to find their pace and find their rhythm, and they probably will end up being a top 5, top 6 seed in the playoffs when they do come around, because I'm sure their defense will find a rhythm and find out how to work together better. And then Klay Thompson, I also think, is going to turn it around. So I think for sure that the Golden State Warriors are going to be able to turn around their season and make the playoffs. But unfortunately, guys, that's going to be for Zeros with Combo. Do you agree with me? Do you think that the Warriors will end up making the playoffs? Do you think they will turn it around? Or do you think they will continue to struggle the whole season? I want to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. And if you did like your point, hit the like button and subscribe button. It would mean the absolute word to me. And I hope you have a blessed day. Have a blessed day. So you have a blessed day. All glory to God. See you in the next video. Goodbye. Boo. Blah.